I'm going to call the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency to order. It is May 12th, 2021. And just for the record, Jim Cooper, our chair, is not able to join us. So I'm leading the agency today. And are there any corrections, additions, or omissions to the agenda? Seeing none, may I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved by Carolina. Is there a second?
Second. This is Joan.
Okay, it's been seconded by Joan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, we have an agenda. My next up is the chair report, and is the state auditor's exit conference report. And is it Bryson, are you going to lead it? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Right. Great. Thank you, Cynthia. So we will be presenting today the results of our engagements with the agency. And we have, first we'll go ahead and just introduce ourselves, and then we'll jump into the presentation that we have for you.
Bryson, could I stop you just 1 second? Because I'm having computer problems. Randy, if I lose it, will you carry on until I get back on?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead, please, Bryson.
No problem. And we're happy to make adjustments as we go if needed for technology issues, because that does pop up. So just really quick to introduce the two people that are going to be presenting. Myself first, I am Bryson Bristol, the audit manager for Team Olympia at the Washington State Auditor's Office, the team that's responsible for conducting the audit engagements and attestation engagement with ORCAA. And I'll let Hannah introduce herself next.
Hello, I'm Hannah Heelan, and I was the audit lead for ORCAA this year.
Great. All right, so what I will do next is pull up the exit conference PowerPoint. So this is going to supplement the PDF document that you may have received. And really, you should be able to follow along through the PowerPoint and get all the information you need, but you will have a hard copy as that you can keep with you after the meeting as a reference to refer back to. So let me get this pulled up here, share my screen. I'm going to wait a second to make sure that that shows up for everyone.
Looks good.
Okay, great. So as I was mentioning, the presentation today, we'll go through. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer those throughout the presentation or at the end of the presentation as well. So please don't be afraid to ask. And with that, we'll get going. So first slide in here has a picture of our elected state auditor, Pat McCarthy. And we talk about results that matter. There's three essential pillars that guide the reason why we conduct our work here at the auditor's office. One of the most important reasons and things about the audits that we conduct is their role to increase trust in government. So our audits are able to do this because the public does trust the state auditor's office as an independent organization that provides transparent examinations of how state and local governments use public funds. Another important role of our audits is the ability to identify areas where efficiencies can be improved or compliance with regulations, controls over those areas can be improved. And we do that through our recommendations that we issue during the course of our audit. We can also identify areas that are already working efficiently and effectively through the course of our work and our review during our audits. So as I mentioned before, the goal today is to make sure you understand the results of all the engagements we conducted for this audit cycle and answer any questions that you may have as we go through. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Hannah to take you through the accountability audit results to begin with.
All right. So one of the audits that we conducted was an accountability audit. And for the agency, we conducted this audit that covered the period July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2020. So a 2-year fiscal period. Results in brief. So the most important box that you are going to notice here is the blue one, and this contains kind of our determination on how the accountability audit went. This is the exact language from the report as well. So this is exactly what you want. In those selected areas, agency operations complied in all material respects with applicable state laws, regulations, and its own policies, and provided adequate controls over the safeguarding of public resources. And we just wanted to remind you guys that in keeping with general auditing practices, we do not examine every transaction, activity, policy, internal control, or area. So as a result, no information is provided on the areas that we did not examine. And if we move on to the next page, this will cover the areas that we did examine. So we use a risk-based approach in our planning procedures. We do multiple things like analyticals, trends. We speak with a member of the board. We talk with staff. We read minutes. We do a lot of things to determine what areas that we are going to audit. These bulleted points here are the areas that we did select. We audited compliance with state grants, specifically the ecology grant for the wood smoke reduction program. We looked at accounts payable, procurement, self-insurance, which is required every 2 years, and open public meetings, which we do with every accountability audit. And as noted in the previous slide, we determined that the agency was in compliance with the applicable state laws, regulations, and its own policies, and provided adequate controls over these areas. Are there any questions about these areas before we move on to the next
Anybody
financial
have
audit?
questions? I don't see any. Go ahead, Hannah.
Great. So we will move on to our financial audit. This covers the same fiscal period, July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2020. So the agency received an unmodified audit opinion, which is a clean audit opinion. That's exactly what you want. It is important to note that the agency does use the cash basis method, the BARS manual. And because of this, we are required to include in our audit report a GAAP adverse opinion. This is totally normal. The BARS method is allowed. We just wanted to let you know that because sometimes people see the GAAP adverse opinion in the report and panic a little bit. So that's totally normal. We just have to say that you guys didn't report under GAAP, but that's totally fine. Additionally, it is important to note that our audits are conducted in accordance with governmental audit standards. Those standards also require that we gain an understanding of the agency's internal controls or process that it goes through to prepare the financial statements for audit. So that's what we go over with Lynn and just kind of inquire as to how she prepares the financial statements, what she uses to prepare them, who's reviewing them. Should we identify a weakness or a concern that the process, or a concern with the process that could or did result in errors to the financial statements, we would be required to notify you guys immediately of that. However, we did not have any concerns with the process and the internal controls over preparing the financial statements. Awesome. So financial audit results, there were no uncorrected misstatements and there were no material misstatements in the financial statements that were corrected by management during the audit. So exactly what you want, a nice clean financial audit. Any questions about financial audit before we start talking about the AOP program?
Is there any questions? I don't see any. Hannah, if you'd like to proceed.
Great. So we also do some attestation procedures over the air operating permit program. This covers the exact same fiscal period, 2 years, July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2020. So we perform the procedures that are specified by the Washington Department of Ecology to make sure that that program is functioning properly and that there's proper controls over permits issued and things like that. Once again, we examined that area and there were no issues identified. So if there aren't any questions about that, we can move on to the next section. Awesome. I'll pass this back over to Bryson.
Great. Thank you, Hannah. So And Hannah just went through the 3 engagements we have. So accountability, the financial statements, and then our attestation engagement for the air operating program. So next, we're starting to wrap up here. This is our closing remarks. First thing to note is audit costs are in alignment with our original estimates. So we're really pleased to report that, especially noting the fact that we conducted this audit and engagement remotely, and that's unique. Because of the pandemic, we haven't had to do that previously. Normally we are on site, and so I know that took extra work on both sides. So appreciate being able to complete everything within the expected budget and timeframe, given all those external and additional things to work around working remotely. Next audit will be conducted on the 2-year cycle. Again, 2023, we'll be doing accountability, financial statement, and again, the attestation engagement. And the estimated cost has been included in the provided exit packet. Report publication. So we'll be publishing within 1 to 2 weeks of the exit conference today. If you'd like to sign up to be notified via email, there is a link that's included on this slide as well as in the exit packet, the hard copy exit packet. And then lastly, audit survey. We appreciate any feedback. The survey will go out to those that we worked with during the course of the audit. Please feel free to forward that to anyone else that would like to fill out that survey. And that survey, we really do appreciate feedback because it helps us make sure that we are providing the best audit experience for our clients that we can. So anything we can do to improve, anything that worked well, please let us know that when you fill out the survey. And then on this last slide, I'm going to turn it back over to Hannah since she worked more directly with you to do some thank yous.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you to Lynn and Fran and Debbie and all the staff. They were super helpful, always communicated, got our documents to us timely, just made the process a lot easier. I even got to go on site for a couple days to work with some documents that were just easier to handle on site. And they provided me with a nice secluded conference room, and they were just great to work with. And especially for an offsite audit, I just really appreciate everything that Lynn did, always made herself available for questions. So really, thanks a lot, guys. And it was fun audit. I hope I get to come back in a couple years.
Great.
Right. Well, at this
So,
point, we're at the end. So any questions, we'd love to answer those if there are any. And we are through the material we have to present.
so if you'd quit sharing your screen, I can see if there's any hands up.
Absolutely. Give me just 1 second to do that.
While Bryson's doing that, I want to thank Hannah. She was great to work with, and Lynn was phenomenal. Lynn is always wonderful. She's spot on. She's she's incredible with documentation. She makes sure that we all do things properly. And so, Lynn, thank you. Great job. And Hannah, it was wonderful working with you, and appreciate the state auditor coming in and looking at how we do things, because we always want to make sure that we're doing things right. So thank you to both of you. And again, a special thank you to Lynn. She's just been fabulous.
So I would like to also say that I'm really pleased that it went well. Yay. And thank you, Bryson and Hannah. Lynn, you had your hand up.
Again, I want to just extend a big thank you to Hannah. She definitely provided some good guidance as well. And so, there's a lot to learn, on both sides. And I appreciate her flexibility as well. And, Bryson, I will definitely look forward to responding to the survey. I always do. I think it's important that, you hear, whether it be positive or negative, but in this case, it's all going to be positive. But I think it's important that you hear feedback from your constituents, your municipalities, and those who you audit. So thank you, Bryson, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 years. Hannah, Bryson, thank you.
It's good to know all of you have had a really clean audit. It's great. So thank you very much, both of you. And I guess with that, we'll move on to public comments. And so see you guys. And what I first have up is Jana Wiley. If you would introduce yourself, say where you're from, and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Jana Wiley from Olympia, Washington. I live in Southeast County. So I'm just following up here to my last public statements made last month. I have a couple of questions and just 3 observations. So I just want to re-ask the question that I stated last time and didn't get an answer for, which was why lift the COVID burn ban, 1. And the second question was why allow burning of homes for firefighting training with the following still intact on their structures. And I want to cite composition roofs, PVC plumbing, linoleum, vinyl windows, and carpet. And know that I did call about 20 random states, and none of these other states in our country allow this. So, and I made careful documentation on that. So the 3 observations I have here from CDC bulletins, and the first one was the guideline for wildfire smoke and COVID-19, which was updated October 9th of 2020. And their recommendations were based on health ramifications, especially heart and lung. And then the second bulletin was the CDC guidelines for open burning, which is people's backyard burnings. And that was updated November 13th of 2020. And they state actions to reduce smoke exposure are necessary for health reasons in that bulletin. And then the third bulletin was the CDC review on, quote, prescribed burning, which is what got me to testify last month, because we have a 2-acre lot that's been clear cut with splash piles. It still haven't been burned yet, but it's in a densely populated area full of seniors and people who had COVID. So, and we're all going to be exposed to only one southwest wind. So apparently to the CDC, prescribed burning is allowing and legally allowing emissions of large quantities of the PM 2.5s and toxins. They require the burn to be reasonably necessary, quote. And I want to ask ORCAA to please ask yourselves, and even Department of Ecology, who works with ORCAA, to why burning of large slash piles in residential areas is reasonable and necessary during the pandemic. There's a lot of vulnerable people around here. I'm not the only one. And yet I was the only one who took the time to comment that people are very anxious about what's coming forth for us, given we will probably have more wildfire smoke this year. So here we are, still in a pandemic, wildfires predicted, and prescribed burning going right on in my neighborhood, a very large quantity of green forest products. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next up is Harriet Ammon. Did I pronounce that correctly? And would you unmute yourself and introduce yourself, say where you're from, and keep your comments to 3 minutes, please.
So my name is Harriet Ammon, Dr. Harriet Ammon. I live on the west side of Olympia. I am here to support and endorse what the questions and the statements that Jana Wiley has made. And I do that from experience with wood smoke since 1984, when we were doing wood stoves at EPA. And then I was with Department of Health as a public health toxicologist dealing with smoke, and at the ecology air quality program as well. So what Jana has said is important, especially the statement about structure fires and the permit for that. We just finished, I worked with Department of Health to do a renewal of the report of public health guidance for public officials on wildlands fire. We had to include structure fires because so many people have moved into the woods, and when they burn, they produce all kinds of highly toxic material, including dioxin and heavy metals and many other things. So again, I support what Jana Wiley has said about permitting that particular activity. And then the burning of slash piles in the risk assessment, the assessment of whether there would be an impact, you have to consider the presence of vulnerable populations. And Jana Wiley has said that there are vulnerable people right there where the slash is to be burned. There are people who have had COVID. There are people who have heart and lung disease. And heart and lung disease, premature deaths from those occurs from air pollution incidents as well as long-term exposure. But the majority occurred during the incident. And when the piles are burned, fans or whatever other mitigation that you do not make the smoke go away to healthful levels.
Thank you so much. So I'm hoping that we can have your emails. Some of this can be, and you could ask your questions specifically in an email. So some of it we can respond to and bring it back to ORCAA so that we can look at it in writing if that's possible. So if you would email it to Fran, perhaps. Do they have your email address, Fran?
I think Jana does, but it's fran.mcnair, McNair, at ORCAA, ORCAA.org. I think Jana and I have emailed her. She does have my email.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. So with that, we're going to move on. It's an action item for the consent agenda. May I have a motion? You're muted, Joan.
So move.
Okay, it's been moved by Joan. Kathy, may I have a second?
Second.
Caroline seconded. All those, is there any polls or additions to the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, we have a consent agenda. So next up is new business, the online residential burn permits to GH Fire District number 12 in the city of McCleary.
So I just wanted to, and so Robert and Dan Nelson and I and Mike Schultz from our staff have been talking to the city of McCleary and to Fire District 12 for Clallam County. Out of the last board meeting, there was a desire to look at the potential for an online system like we have for Thurston County. And our online permit system for residential burning has been very successful in Thurston County over the years because for multiple reasons. Number one, we can look at, if somebody applies for a burn permit in Thurston County, we can look to see whether they qualify, whether they're in an urban growth area or they're in a city or they're in an area that allows it. And it also helps the fire districts and the fire departments look up an address to see if we know when there's a problem. So we met with the mayor of McCleary, and we've had two phone calls that included the mayor, and we've had the first phone call from Clallam Fire District 12, which covers McCleary and parts of the county, not Clallam, I'm sorry, Grace Harbor. I don't know why I'm saying Clallam. It's all Grace Harbor, never mind. So, and that's Commissioner Warner's area that we're talking about for Grace Harbor. In any case, the city has brought the idea back to the city council and they are supportive. So at the city council meeting, that'll be, I think, on the 26th of May, staff will be participating to answer questions with the city council for McCleary, looking at the opportunity for an online system. Now, recognizing we need to have education and outreach to make this successful. And also it's not, as Nick, our IT person has pointed out, it's not as simple. We just sort of open up the online system and because we can't just open up our data, obviously for security purposes. So there will be a way we're still working out the details, but there will be a way for the fire district and the city to be able to look at the information. We're just not exactly sure how that'll happen. But the key will be working with Grace Harbor Fire District 12 and the city, getting information out to the public to let them know that we're looking at that there will hopefully will be an online system where they would sign up for a residential burn permit, as people do in unincorporated Thurston County. That way, number one, it educates them about what you can burn, when you can burn. So it really gives people a good sense of education. The city has indicated that they can put things in their newsletter, that, you know, they have, as we do, they have social media. So we would, you know, try to get the information out that way also. We still need another follow-up conversation with Grace Harbor Fire District 12. I'm hoping, I know Commissioner Warnay that's the area of the county that you represent, so we'd love to hear her thoughts on it too. And again, I've got staff here, Robert and Dan can also add some information, but it's a good conversation. We think that this is a good start. We'd like to see this online system go out to all our 6 counties eventually, because I just think it's a great way to, number one, educate people about what you can and can't do. When we get calls about somebody's burning, we can go to the map and look and see, you know, where they live and what the situation is. And also, if people apply for the online permit in Thurston County at this point, and they in an area where if they can't burn, they get an email immediately saying, no, you don't qualify, you can't burn. So it's a really good communication mechanism from that perspective also. So we're excited about the opportunity to, again, branch out and have more of an online system, you know, and it's just a really good way to educate people about what you can and can't do. So I'll open it up to Robert and to Dan if they want to add some information. The other thing too is we're going to develop an MOU if this ultimately happens. So we have in writing a memorandum of understanding with the fire district and with the city about, you know, our roles and responsibilities and how we see this thing playing out. So let me open it up to Robert and Dan.
This is Robert. I do believe it is a good step forward and an opportunity to involve some other counties in this process. It has been useful both internally to ORCAA staff as well as our other parties. And again, the key message that gets out this way is the regulations that they need to burn under. That's what they're signing in hand that way. So they actually are hopefully understanding what the limitations are better than what they do now. So thank you.
Dan?
Yeah, I would just add it's both a great communication tool for burners, for the regulatory agencies to communicate to them, and for them, the burners, to be informed of any changes in conditions. So if a burn ban comes up for fire safety or air quality issues, we can notify them immediately. And I would just note, I mean, Nick is doing a great job on the back end. I think he and I have come up with a plan so that we can use the same residential burn permit form and just have toggles on it so that we can add counties or fire districts going forward, at the same time protecting fully the integrity of our system and not letting people through our firewall. So we would be the sole keeper of the data, but the data would be pushed out to those jurisdictions so they'd have access to it too. So lots of technical details to work out, but I think in the long run, it has the potential to be a really clean, safe, and effective communication and enforcement tool.
And the other piece, you know, oftentimes people say, well, I didn't know anything about ORCAA. And so it's one more way to get our name out there, so that people know who we are. They can come to us as a resource, and we can provide information. And again, the more coordination we can have with our local jurisdictions and the fire districts, the better. So this is just a really great step forward. So Commissioner Warnay, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add.
I don't right now. I know I need to catch up with the McClary people and discuss, get their input.
So is there any other questions by the board, including Jill, of course, but seeing none, it sounds like a really good potential program. So will you be bringing it back to us once it gets going and stuff?
Yes, we will. So as I say, we'll be meeting with the McCleary City Council. They meet, I think, twice a month. So we're meeting with them at the end of May. And, you know, when we have a draft MOU, we'll bring it back. And it's a really good start, you know, in terms of communication and coordination. Our region, as everybody knows, is huge. And the more that we can get out and work with our local jurisdictions and fire districts and our citizens, the better for everyone. So yes, we'll be bringing this back. This is just sort of an update based upon the request at the last meeting. So I wanted to get back to let you know that we absolutely took it very seriously. We got started and we think we're on a great road to see this thing operational.
Okay, and my assumption is the board will have to pass the MOU, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. With that, let's go on to the director's report, compliance program update. And that is Robert.
That is indeed. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. On your screen of stuff, it's tab B4, it says compliance. So I don't have any good fun stories like this month, which is actually a good thing. And I think you can see from the reports that are in front of you there, life is maybe starting to return to normal. We've got a lot of inspections we got done in the last month. You'll see a lot of asbestos and demolition permits have been coming through, and complaints are still up, and most of those are outdoor burning, which is kind of a tie into why a permit system is nice. If we have issues, we can call people too, but very few people we get complaints about have permits, so that's part of it too. So are there any questions of what's going on in the compliance world?
Are there any comments, questions? I don't see any.
Okay, thank you.
That's easy. Thank you. So,
Cynthia, I do have a question.
oh, Joan, go ahead.
Just for clarity and for my own understanding, the two guests that we have with us today, how does this compliance thing that Robert's talking about or other areas of compliance fit with what is being said about this burning in this other area that Harriet and Jana talked about? Is there any connection here?
If I was looking for a connection, yes, we do permit land clearing burns throughout the majority of our jurisdiction, not quite all of it, but we do have some fire districts that do the permitting for us. So yeah, page.
I'm just having a hard time remembering some of the details when they spoke of this before. And
So page 8 in the packet there is the land clearing burns that ORCAA has permitted in the last month. That's what you're looking at there. You'll see they cover majority in throughout our jurisdiction. It is where development is happening. So it may be somebody's making a pasture, it may be somebody's building a house, a new garage. So a variety of reasons, maybe a development even. So that's where those come from. Specific to the one near Ms. Wiley's place, yes. That one I think is still on the list, though I can't remember which one it is. I don't see it readily. So it is one that we are waiting for weather pattern to develop to keep the smoke away from sensitive individuals.
So I might add that on that one also, we put some, because of the concerns about smoke, we said burning would only be Monday through Friday as opposed to 7 days a week, because our compliance staff is there, and so they would be able to respond if there's an issue. And as Robert says, we're looking at wind So we put, so when we have concerns, and there are obviously concerns because the homes are fairly close together there, it is it's rural residential in zoning, so it is allowed. But we're trying to do the best we can to make sure that the smoke doesn't create an impact for citizens that live around the area by looking at wind direction, air quality issues, etc. So that one has very specific controls that we've worked out with them.
So we are, with what we have, permission and so forth, or just what we do, able to answer some of their questions or some of their needs. I'm trying to remember when Jana was here before, and I'm getting the feeling that it didn't change or it didn't get any better. So that's
Based upon the county's designation for zoning allows burning in that area. And the best we can do is again, we would abide by in the summertime, obviously between, there's a fire safety burn ban, so there wouldn't be any burning in the summer. And that's something that in Thurston County is in our rule. Of the other counties, it's the fire marshals that put it in place. And if there are air quality issues, then we control that. So if there was an air quality issue, and that's mostly in the wintertime, when smoke won't basically dissipate, we can call, we haven't in the number of years now, probably 2 or 3 years, we haven't had any burn bans for air quality, in our region. Last summer, obviously because of the wildfires, that was another impact, but that was also, I think, mostly during a fire safety burn ban anyway. And again, with the wildfires, that's in the purview of the fire marshals, not us. So we obviously try to work together. So based upon the zoning, we can't say you can't burn. We can put conditions on the burning, but we can't tell them they can't burn because there isn't an air quality issue that we can demonstrate. So I know that Ms. Riley would like to say, and we always offer other options. So it's not like we say, yeah, have at it. We always say, are there ways that you can chip, but if this is a large, land clearing, that's tough to use other alternatives. We always offer additional alternatives to burning if at all possible.
Is this Thurston County?
Yes.
And it's their zoning.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Just trying to understand it, partly because I didn't remember from last time.
Yeah, I don't either. So, okay, so is there any other questions by the board? Seeing none, we're going on to engineering, and where is
Mark's here.
Mark?
Good morning, Mark Gooden here, and I believe it's tab 5 in your board packet. We'll have a list of the pending permits for industrial and commercial sources. These are permits to install new equipment that emits air pollution, like generators, boilers, spray booths, things of that nature. These are also permit applications to modify existing facilities. So it's a fairly large laundry list of them. And so my report today, I'm not going to go into any specifics here, just to say that there's a lot of permits that have been applied for since the turn of the year. And you can see from page 1 of this report that 7 of them have become final and went out the door. There's plenty others that are on the cusp of being approved as well. When we approve these, just as a matter of just general knowledge, we approve them conditionally. So there's always conditions that require air pollution to be controlled. And that comes from a variety of different techniques like bag houses and electrostatic precipitators. So if you see anything on this list that's in your jurisdiction or anything that piques your interest, we've got lots of details on what's being proposed, and always we'll have a draft permit or approval order with conditions if you want to see those. So I'll leave it at that, just to say finally here that there's a whole lot of permits in the permit pipeline, and so things are busy. So with that, please ask me any questions if you see anything that piques your interest from this list. Thanks.
Do you have any questions, Sport? I don't see any. Mark, I do have one quick question, only because I don't recognize it. Under Lacey, there's PKMM Inc. and a metal fabrication. So is that the name of it, or is it abbreviated? And also, and it's on page, I think it's on page 3. Where's that located in Lacey?
Okay, I don't know what that acronym stands for. It's definitely abbreviated.
Okay.
And so I will have to get back to you on any kind of details, but the description, the very short description there, it's establishing a spray coating operation at their metal fabrication facility. So they're going to be spray applying paint to metal. It's after the fact, which means that the facility was built without our approval, or this spray coating line was built without our approval, which means it also went through some sort of an enforcement determination. And those take different pathways. Sometimes our inspectors find these facilities that don't do the right thing up front and get a permit. An enforcement action's taken, and then they submit an application to go get our approval after the fact. That's this case here.
Right.
So I could get you the details, Cynthia, and email them to Fran, who can get them to you on their name and exactly where they're located here.
That would be helpful. I don't recognize them, and usually you do on a fairly substantial thing. So I would appreciate that. Is
Okay.
there any other questions? Well, seeing none, let's move on to the air quality program. Dr. Hadley.
Pretty short, the air quality for the month of April in our region and other air monitoring activities summary. There we go. So as is typical this time of year, we have good air, even on our maximum 24-hour average at all of our sites. Didn't come anywhere near close to moderate, so that's good. In Raymond, we lost several days, about, well, two and a half days of data, and we're not really sure what happened, but the Raymond data logger had some hiccups. So Mike had gone out to do a QC, and after his QC, it started transmitting bad data, and he went back out there, and this was over the weekend, which is why it's 2 days. He went back out there and couldn't find a problem, but he must have moved a wire or something, because after he went, the data responded properly. So we don't know why we lost that data. But yeah, nothing too interesting on this slide. We are collecting ozone, and as I mentioned last month, the Lacey Mountain View site will be the only ozone monitor in Thurston County or our region. except for Chesapeake has an ozone monitor as well. But there's usually one in Yelm that the Department of Ecology operates, and they will not be operating it this year and possibly next year. So this will be our ozone monitor for Thurston County. The National Ambient Air Quality Standard for ozone is 70 parts per billion. And as you can see, we didn't approach that. Our 3 highest days correspond to those real nice, warm weather days that we had. So when we get the beautiful, sunny, hot weather, we start to see peaks in the ozone. So expect that. Maybe we'll see a few this week. Fingers crossed. Other monitoring news. So usually have a monthly site visit to Chesapeake. This one was an upgrade to the data logger, which is always scary because, you know, there can always be problems with computers and communication later, but it went flawlessly with no problems. I've also begun working on an infrastructure maintenance plan for the site. So we have that tower up there with guy wires, and there's been no service on that or inspection for a while. So we are working to make sure that that is still in good structural condition. And I just finished and submitted the annual Chesapeake report to EPA. The Aberdeen quarterly QC was finished, and we installed an IP switch there. Again, these are little devices we're installing at our remote sites, which enable us to remotely restart data loggers if they fail to start up or through the router. And if the router does not detect internet activity, it will automatically restart everything. So it saves us those long drives to literally push a button. So this saves us money and time, and that's great. We also have been rebuilding and replacing pumps at all the sites. The Aberdeen pump was pretty new, so I just rebuilt that. So that looks good. The Lacey site, we installed the CO monitor last month, and so that requires a site visit every 2 weeks to do a QC on that because we don't have that automated at the site. I also replaced the anemometer, which is the wind measurement device. That had not been done in a little while, so that was overdue. And performed inlet maintenance, and that was kind of a fun day. So the Department of Ecology needed to shoot a promo video for their website, and they wanted some field work of air monitors out in the field. So Beth Friedman from Ecology came over to look at the site and inspect it for the ETO project, ethylene oxide measurements that we'll be doing next month. And then we had some video, and we actually did some real work and performed some maintenance out there. So good things happening. And then lastly, I've been spending some time organizing the Northwest AirQuest annual meeting. So I was the technical chair for this year, and after June, we will pass that off, and I will no longer be the chair for Northwest AirQuest. So just putting a few more hours in this month and last month into getting all of that stuff ready to move on. And that is all I have. So short, simple summary for this month.
Thank you. Is there any questions?
So I will also add, I have to leave the meeting at 11. So if you did have any questions, I won't be around for the end of the meeting possibly. So now would be a time. But no questions. So good. All right.
Good job. Thank you. Next up is education outreach. Dan.
The past month have been mostly working on outdoor burning. On indoor burning side, I think we mentioned in the past, we were trying to get some additional funds to close out the wood stove program for this budget year. We were able to get an extra $10,000 for that program from the state that they pulled back from Puget Sound Clean Air. They weren't able to use their full grant allotment, so we were able to get part of that. It was a long drawn out process. We got it 2 months or almost 3 months after we asked for it. So I have fully allocated all of that money. We had a wait list with our vendors. Hopefully that will all get spent. I'm confident it will, but part of our issue has been the COVID restrictions on production of new appliances, from ductless heat pumps, natural gas stoves, and pellet and wood stoves as well. There's a big delay in getting new appliances out to customers. So hopefully Ecology allowed us enough time with the delay in getting the grant update to us, but we've got what, a month and a half left to spend that money. So hopefully that 6 weeks will be enough to get those appliances installed and us to close out that program. But we have exceeded our initial allotment twice now. So we've done a great job with that program and are looking forward to the next budget year. It looks like the legislature has approved or is considering 3 million for the program for next year. Fran can update us on that, I hope, with some different restrictions on it next year, but we'll work out those details. And on the outdoor burning side, working with compliance, doing a lot of one-on-one meetings and phone calls with fire districts just to make sure we're all on the same page and communicating the same messages to the communities we work with, and having good results there. The McCleary Fire District 12 is a great example of good cooperation in that aspect. So that's about it for me. A lot of back end stuff on the asbestos and public record stuff. We're maintaining monthly asbestos permits online now. So people that want those can find those right away, and hopefully taking some of the pressure off our office staff having to respond to public records requests.
So if you don't spend the money for the ductless swap out, that goes back to Ecology.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, I've fully allocated that 10,000. We'll certainly expend the administrative part of that, and I know if anything, we may come up 1,500 to 2,000 short. There's a couple program projects that were approved just last week that, again, if 6 weeks should be enough time to get the products, but COVID has thrown off manufacturing so much, and especially in building and home renovation materials, that it's kind of anybody's guess when things will come in. So,
okay.
But yeah, if the money's not spent, it'll roll back into the program next year, I believe. That's the goal.
So is there any other questions from the board? So with that, seeing none, we're going to move on to Lynn and finance update.
Good morning, all. Nice to see you all again. Just a couple things, the audit has wrapped up, and that's pleasant for me, so I can work on my other agenda items. And the Finance Committee met this morning again. We briefly discussed the budget for fiscal year 2022. There's no changes with the exception of one that Fran will be bringing up a little later. We did, at Mr. Cooper's request last month, discuss more specifically the detail of the office building maintenance and leasehold improvements. So we discussed the detail behind the $41,000 that is included in next year's budget. And other than that, things are moving along. We'll be looking at fine tuning the bids for our front entry door, and finally getting in a landscaper to be able to work on the exterior and improve the appearance, which it needs following COVID and the restrictions lifted. So we're looking forward to that. And it's nice to see the building across the parking lot from us definitely jumped on board and did some nice improvements that we really need to follow suit and just get rid of those weeds and add a little bit more color to the building. With 9 tenants, they have we have a responsibility as well. So other than that, if there's any questions.
Here's the Finance Committee. Because I'm chair of the Finance Committee, made a recommendation to increase the salary. Last year we did a performance measures of the executive director, and this year we're proposing that the board provide a raise to the to Fran of bringing her up at least to the lowest salary of the, what is it, the Southwest, I believe, of Clean Air Agency.
Yeah.
So for 2022, they are paying 165,000 and 180, and we're suggesting bringing it up to 165. So that's a recommendation. I don't know if we would vote this time or next time when are we voting on the budget?
The budget will be voted on in June, but
Okay.
if there was it'd be helpful to have maybe a motion by the board so that we know whether we amend the budget to include that salary. So
That's a finance thing.
that's what,
That's a finance thing until we get to the hearing.
but can't they have a motion to suggest that?
I don't think it's necessary.
Well, okay, so let's hear from our attorneys. How do we handle a change based upon, I mean, can it all be done at the budget hearing? And I guess I'd ask Jeff or Mike.
Are you planning on taking action to increase the salary today? Or are
No,
you planning on doing that at the next meeting?
It'd be part of the 2020 fiscal year 2022 budget, so it wouldn't take effect till July 1st. Be part of the budget, new budget.
So that will be part of the budget and the budget's being adopted at the next meeting, not today.
Right, hopefully, yeah.
So I think you can take the action to approve that increase at the next meeting,
Okay,
together with including that in next year's budget.
so staff would basically come to that meeting with two budgets, one with it and one without it.
I would think that would be prudent.
Okay.
Yes, okay. I just would like to make sure that the board knows that the finance committee recommended that. Fran is getting paid right now about 20,000 less than everybody else. So for the lowest of the agencies. So we have given her a good performance rating. So I just want to make that clear. Is there anything else, Lynn, that you needed to talk about?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, with that, then let's move on to the executive director's report.
Thank you. Couple things. EPA is doing some wonderful things these days. Under the prior president, they took off the climate change off their website. That's all being reinstated. Many of the changes that were put in place by the last administration are being revoked. Things like, and there's a meeting coming up to talk about it. So the state of Washington basically was consistent with California's air quality emissions rules that they had adopted under CARB. Under the prior administration, they said that not only could California not have those additional emission restrictions, but none of the states there were 16 states that wanted to be consistent. They said we couldn't do that. That's all being hopefully rescinded. So it's in that kind of a perspective that we're really excited about the direction that the EPA is taking. Michael Reagan, who is the new administrator, will be talking to the National Association of Clean Air Agencies. We have a 2-day meeting, I think the week after next, or maybe it's next week. Obviously it's virtual. And so Michael Reagan will be talking to us, the NACA members, about the direction that EPA is going to be taking over the next 4 years. And we're very excited about that. Staff are working still pretty much remotely. We have folks that are in and out. The majority of the staff have been vaccinated, which is exciting. And we have two things. Number one, at the air directors meeting that's coming up on the 26th. One of the questions we're going to be discussing is what are the other air agencies looking at how we're going to be moving staff back into the office on what kind of basis? Because I want to hear what the other air agencies are doing. Also on that day and also on the 20th, EPA, AWC and Municipal Research are having 2 different sessions talking about the impacts of COVID on government. and so I'm going to hopefully participate in both of those. One are the legal issues, the other are just sort of the structural kinds of things in terms of how we are managing staff and our organizations. It's different, obviously, for counties and cities than just for ORCAA, but some of the things will be consistent. So it's helpful to hear what the environment is around us legally as well as functionally in terms of how we sort of get back to some kind of a normal state, whatever that state is going to be. But I have to say, and I've got to commend staff, that even in this very, very difficult year, and staff are working independently, they're working remotely, and they've done a superb job. You have an amazing staff in ORCAA. The managers, supervisors are all incredible, and staff they've really stepped to the plate and they've done a wonderful job. So I can't thank them enough, and I really appreciate all of that. And they've been very productive. And as you see in the budget, our revenues have been good. And partly we're lucky because the building industry has really taken off, and a lot of the sources that we regulate are part of the building industry in terms of producing wood products. We do have a staff vacancy. We have a compliance. It's an air quality specialist 1 position open, and we're advertising it. It's kind of slow. So we're hoping that, if in your own jurisdictions, if you've got people that are interested, building inspectors oftentimes are would be good candidates for the position, but it's on our website. We've advertised with local universities, and we've actually, I think Dan's put it out nationally too. So if anybody wants some more information, you can access our website or give me a call or an email, and we can get you more information about that position. It is available. It is open. Let's see. Okay. I think that is pretty much it in terms of my update. And as Cynthia indicated, we've put out the budget on our website, and we've advertised it so that we've got time for public comment. And there'll be a public hearing at the June board meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to pass the budget, because if we don't, we have no money as of July 1st. We're on the state fiscal year, and so our budget year runs July 1 to June 30th. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to pass the budget at the June meeting, and life will go on from there. So I don't know if either of the attorneys have anything they want to add, but that's my report.
Is there any other information you want to add or questions? Seeing none, I think we're at the end of our agenda. Despite being blown off the air and everything, I've managed through this. I'm doing an email to Debbie because she asked me a question before I got back online. So I'll finish that. And with that, everyone enjoy the rest of the morning, which is 1 hour, and then have a nice rest of the day and enjoy. Thank you for being here, Jana and Harriet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.